There was a night when a church usher followed his pastor into the forest and watched him drink blood from a calabash at 3 a.m. in a shrine surrounded by candles and strange symbols. 3 days later, that same pastor healed a blind woman in front of 10,000 people. Her eyes opened, and everyone shouted, "Miracle?" The usher said nothing. He knew the truth, and it destroyed everything he believed. This is the story of Pastor Joshua and Soapy Gate Ministry. Everything here happened. Names have been changed, but the events are real. Pastor Joshua appeared in Lagos 5 years ago. Nobody knew where he came from. He just showed up one Sunday and started preaching in a small rented hall in Ikeja. Maybe 50 people attended that first service. But something happened that day that changed everything. A woman brought her son to the service. The boy was 8 years old and had never walked in his life. His legs were twisted from birth. Doctors said it was impossible to fix without multiple surgeries that the family couldn't afford. The mother had heard about this new pastor and decided to try one last time. Pastor Joshua was in the middle of preaching when he suddenly stopped. He pointed at the woman and her son sitting in the back. "Bring that boy here," he commanded. The woman was confused but obeyed. She carried her son to the front. Pastor Joshua didn't pray long prayers. He didn't shout. He simply placed his hand on the boy's legs and said, "Walk." The boy stood up. His legs straightened right there. He took one step, then another. Then he started running around the hall. The place went crazy. People were screaming, crying, praising God. That video went viral on Nigerian WhatsApp and Facebook. By the next Sunday, 500 people showed up. The Sunday after that, 2,000 people. Within 6 months, Pastor Joshua had rented a warehouse that could hold 5,000 people. Within a year, he was filling it twice every Sunday. Within 2 years, the church had 15,000 members and was building its own massive cathedral. The miracles never stopped. Every single service, something happened. Not small things. Big, visible, undeniable miracles. A man with a tumor the size of a football on his neck came to church. Pastor Joshua touched it once. The tumor disappeared. Just vanished. The man went to the hospital after. The doctors were confused. They had x-rays showing the tumor before. Now there was nothing. A woman who had been barren for 15 years got pregnant after Pastor Joshua prayed for her. She gave birth to twins. A businessman whose company was about to collapse came for prayer. Within 1 month, he got a contract worth 50 million naira. He came back to testify with tears. These weren't staged. The people were real. Their testimonies checked out. News stations came to investigate. They interviewed the healed people, visited their doctors. Everything was genuine. Pastor Joshua became the most popular pastor in Lagos, then in Nigeria, then across Africa. He was invited to preach in Ghana, Kenya, South Africa. His videos got millions of views. Celebrities started attending his church. Politicians came for prayers. His crusades filled stadiums.
He was humble about it.
Never bragged. Always gave glory to God. He was generous too. The church fed 1,000 poor people every week, paid school fees for orphans, built boreholes in villages. Everyone loved him. There was a young man named Tund who joined the church early. He had been suicidal, depressed, without direction. Pastor Joshua helped him during altar call one day, called him out specifically, knew things about him nobody could have known, prayed for him. The depression lifted immediately. Tund became devoted to the church. He joined the ushering team, then became an usher coordinator. He was at church every day, volunteering, cleaning, helping. Pastor Joshua trusted him, gave him keys to the church offices, made him part of the inner circle. One night, Tund was at the church late finishing some paperwork. It was around 11 p.m. He heard a car pull up. He looked out the window and saw Pastor Joshua's car. The pastor got out, looked around to make sure nobody was watching, then walked toward the back exit of the church. Tund thought it was strange. Why would pastor come to church this late? And why was he being so secretive? Curiosity got the best of him. He followed. Pastor Joshua got back in his car and drove off. Tund followed in his own car, keeping distance. They drove for almost an hour, heading out of Lagos toward a small village. The roads got darker, narrower. Finally, Pastor Joshua's car stopped near a forest. The pastor got out, took a bag from his trunk, and walked into the forest.
There was a small path.
Tun parked his car far away and followed on foot, using his phone light carefully. After 20 minutes of walking, Tun saw light ahead. He got closer, hiding behind trees. What he saw made his blood freeze. There was a clearing in the forest. In the center was a shrine. Not a Christian altar. A traditional shrine with carved wooden figures, clay pots, animal skulls arranged in patterns. Candles were burning everywhere. And there were other people there. About 7 of them, all wearing white clothes with red marks on their faces. Pastor Joshua was in the middle of the shrine. He had removed his suit and was wearing only white wrapper around his waist. He was kneeling in front of a calabash. An old man with long gray beard was leading some kind of ceremony. He was speaking in Yoruba, chanting things Tund couldn't fully understand. But he heard some words. Words about power. About maintaining the covenant. About blood sacrifice. The old man cut a chicken's throat. The blood poured into the calabash. He mixed it with other things. Herbs. Powder. Liquid that looked thick and dark. Then he handed the calabash to Pastor Joshua. Pastor Joshua drank it. All of it. Then he bowed down, touching his head to the ground 7 times, chanting something in a language Tund had never heard. Tund wanted to run, but he was frozen. He watched for another 30 minutes. There was dancing. More chanting. The old man marked Pastor Joshua's forehead with something that looked like white chalk mixed with blood. Then they all disappeared into a small hut deeper in the shrine. Tund ran back to his car. He drove home shaking, crying, confused. What had he just seen? His pastor. The man of God. The miracle worker. In a shrine. Drinking blood. Performing rituals. He didn't sleep that night. His mind was racing. Maybe he misunderstood. Maybe it was something else. Maybe Pastor Joshua was there to pray against the shrine, to do spiritual warfare. Yes, that must be it. But deep down he knew. He knew what he saw. 3 days later was Sunday service. Tund went, but everything looked different now. When Pastor Joshua walked out smiling, waving at the congregation, Tund saw the mark.
Faint.
Almost invisible, but there on his forehead. The same mark the old man had put on him. Nobody else noticed it, but Tund saw it clearly. The service started normal. Praise and worship. Offering. Then Pastor Joshua began to preach. His sermon was powerful as always.
About faith.
About trusting God. About miracles. Then came the altar call. "There's a woman here," Pastor Joshua said. "You've been blind in your right eye for 3 years. Come forward." A woman in the crowd started crying. She made her way to the front. Her right eye was clearly damaged, clouded over, not moving properly. Pastor Joshua placed his hand over her eye. "Eyes, open in Jesus' name." The woman screamed. Her eye cleared. She could see. She started jumping, shouting, "I can see! I can see!" The church exploded. 10,000 people shouting, praising God. The band played louder. People were crying, dancing. Tund stood still. He felt sick. The miracle was real. The woman's eye was healed. He could see it clearly, but he also knew what he had seen 3 nights ago. The shrine. The blood. The rituals. How could both be true? Over the next few weeks, Tund started paying attention to things he had ignored before. He noticed that Pastor Joshua wore specific rings. Rings that looked like the ones the people at the shrine were wearing. He noticed that every Monday, Pastor Joshua took a prayer retreat and nobody was allowed to contact him. He noticed that before big crusades, Pastor Joshua would disappear for a night. Tund started investigating quietly. He talked to some of the older church members, asking careful questions. One old woman, Mama Akong, pulled him aside one day. "Be careful what you're looking for," she warned. "Some doors, once you open them, you can't close." "What do you mean?" Tund asked. She looked around to make sure nobody was listening. "I've been in church for 40 years. I've seen many pastors come and go. The ones with the biggest miracles, the fastest growth, the most power, they always have help. Not from above. From below. You mean? I mean nothing, she said quickly. I'm just an old woman talking nonsense. Forget what I said. But Tund couldn't forget. He decided to follow Pastor Joshua again. This time on a Monday during his prayer retreat. Same pattern. Pastor Joshua drove to the same village, walked into the same forest, went to the same shrine. Tund followed and watched from a distance. This time there were more people, maybe 15 of them, all in white. The ceremony was longer, more intense. Tund saw them sacrifice a goat, saw them bury something in the ground, saw Pastor Joshua participate in everything. But the worst part came at the end. The old man brought out a book. An old leather book with strange writings. He opened it and read names. With each name, someone in the circle responded. Then the old man said, "The covenant is maintained. Your power continues. But remember the price. Every miracle requires exchange. Every healing takes from another. Every blessing has a cost." Pastor Joshua nodded. I understand. The more you take, the more you must give back. Your time is coming. You know this. I know. But not yet. I still have work to do. 5 more years. Then the debt must be paid. You agreed to this. 5 more years, Pastor Joshua repeated. Tund's heart was pounding so loud he thought they would hear it. He carefully backed away and ran back to his car.
He understood now.
The miracles were real, but they weren't from God. Pastor Joshua had made a deal. With who or what, Tund didn't know exactly. But it was clear. The power was real, but it came from darkness. Tund stopped going to church. He couldn't. Every time he thought about it, he felt sick. But he didn't tell anyone. Who would believe him? Pastor Joshua was loved by everyone. Respected. Famous. Tund had no proof except his word. Weeks passed. Then months. Tund tried to move on with his life. But the guilt ate at him. Thousands of people were following Pastor Joshua, giving him money, trusting him, building their faith on lies. One day, Tund decided to confront Pastor Joshua privately. Maybe he would deny it. Maybe he would explain. Maybe there was something Tund didn't understand. He went to the church office. Pastor Joshua was alone, working on his laptop. He smiled when Tund walked in.
Tund.
My brother. I haven't seen you in months. Where have you been? Tund's hands were shaking. Pastor, I need to talk to you about something. Of course. Sit down. Tund sat. He didn't know how to start. Finally, he just said it. I followed you. That night. To the forest. I saw the shrine. I saw everything. Pastor Joshua's smile didn't fade. But something changed in his eyes. Something cold. I see, he said calmly. And what exactly do you think you saw? I saw you drinking blood. I saw the rituals. I saw. You saw me doing warfare, Pastor Joshua interrupted. Fighting spiritual battles in places of darkness. Tund, do you think miracles come easy? Do you think I just pray nice prayers and God drops power from heaven?
No.
I go into enemy territory. I fight. I take power from the devil's own camp and use it for good. That's not what it looked like. Then you don't understand spiritual things. You're still a baby Christian. Some of us operate on levels you can't comprehend. Pastor, they talked about a covenant. About a price. Enough. Pastor Joshua's voice became hard. You will not speak of this to anyone. Do you understand? Not to anyone. People have a right to know. Know what? That their pastor fights spiritual battles they're too weak to fight themselves? That I go to dark places so they can receive light? You will destroy faith. You will destroy lives. Is that what you want? Tund stood up. This isn't right. The miracles are real, but the source. The results are what matter. People are healed. Lives are changed. Families are restored. Does the method matter if the outcome is good? Yes, Tund said. Yes, it matters. Pastor Joshua stood and walked to the door. He opened it.
Leave.
And remember this. If you speak, nobody will believe you. But you will lose everything. Your reputation, your job, possibly your life. There are forces protecting this ministry that you cannot fight. It sounded like a threat. It was a threat.
Tund left.
He was terrified. He moved to a different part of Lagos. Changed his number. Avoided everyone from the church. But he couldn't escape the knowledge. Every time he saw Pastor Joshua on TV, saw the crowds, saw the miracles, he felt the weight of what he knew. 6 months after Tund confronted him, Pastor Joshua held his biggest crusade yet. 50,000 people in a stadium. The miracles that night were greater than ever. A man who had been in a wheelchair for 10 years walked. A woman with cancer got instantly healed, confirmed by doctors the next day. It was on every news channel. Pastor Joshua announced he was building a Christian city. A whole complex with schools, hospitals, hotels, all in the name of ministry. The government supported it. Banks gave loans. It was going to be the biggest church project in Nigeria. But then something strange happened. Pastor Joshua started looking different.
Thinner. Tired.
His eyes looked hollow. During services, he would stop mid-sentence sometimes, like he was listening to something nobody else could hear. People noticed, but made excuses. He's working too hard. He needs rest. One Sunday, during altar call, Pastor Joshua collapsed on stage. The cameras were on. Everyone saw it. He was rushed to the hospital. The church said it was exhaustion. But Tund knew better. He remembered the old man's words. 5 more years. Then the debt must be paid. It had been 4.5 years since Tund first followed Pastor Joshua to the shrine. Pastor Joshua recovered and came back to church. But he wasn't the same. The miracles started becoming less frequent. Sometimes prayers didn't work. Sometimes people who came for healing left the same way they came. The congregation didn't notice at first. But slowly, the numbers started dropping. 15,000 became 12,000. Then 10,000. Then 8,000. Pastor Joshua became desperate. He increased the crusades, made bigger promises. But the power was fading. The anointing, or whatever it was leaving. One night, 5 years exactly after Tund first went to the shrine, Pastor Joshua held a special midnight service. Only the elders and dedicated members were invited. About 500 people. Tund wasn't there, but he heard what happened from someone who was. In the middle of the service, Pastor Joshua started speaking strangely.
His voice changed.
Became deeper, multiple voices speaking at once. He started saying things in different languages, confessing things. He talked about the covenant, about the price, about how he had sold his calling for power, about how the real miracles came from darkness pretending to be light. The church elders tried to stop him, to take the microphone. But he pushed them away with strength he shouldn't have had. He kept confessing everything. The shrine, the sacrifices, the deal he made 20 years ago when he was a struggling pastor who wanted to be great. Then he collapsed again. This time, he didn't get up. They called an ambulance. But before it arrived, Pastor Joshua died. Right there on the church altar in front of 500 witnesses. The church tried to keep it quiet. But in the age of smartphones, nothing stays quiet. Videos leaked. The confession spread online. The media grabbed it. Everything fell apart. Investigations started. They found financial records showing payments to traditional priests. They found evidence of other secret activities. They interviewed people who knew the truth, but were too afraid to speak. The whole empire collapsed in weeks. The church building was abandoned. The Christian City project was canceled. The thousands of members scattered to other churches, many of them disillusioned and hurt. Mama Akong, the old woman who had worn Tund, said something at Pastor Joshua's funeral that nobody wanted to hear. He had real miracles, but they came from the wrong source. The devil's greatest trick is not making people believe he doesn't exist. It's making people think his works are God's works. Pastor Joshua wanted power and success more than he wanted truth. He got what he wanted, and it destroyed him. Today, Tund still struggles with what he knows. The miracles were real. People really were healed. Lives really were changed, but the source was corrupt. He thinks about all the people who built their faith on those miracles. What happens to their faith now? What happens when you discover that the foundation you built your life on was a lie mixed with truth? The church building still stands empty. Sometimes people walk past and remember the glory days. They remember the miracles, the joy, the hope. They don't want to believe the truth. But the truth remains. Pastor Joshua was both a miracle worker and a servant of darkness. Both things were true at the same time. And that's the part that nobody wants to accept. Real talk. If the miracles are real but the source is dark, does that make them evil or just complicated? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.